So Senator Joe Manchin did a little thing called fucking around, and now he's about to find out. So this is in Raw Story here. They say GOP prepares to destroy Manchin in 2024 after he dashed their hopes for obstructing Biden's agenda. So there's so many angles to this story that I find fascinating, because what the Republicans assume is true is not at all true. The idea that, like, oh, he was supposed to kill the agenda, but he didn't. He did. He absolutely did. We got a massively watered-down version of what we originally wanted in the Inflation Reduction Act. Originally, we were talking about Build Back Better, which was a way better piece of legislation, and then we only got the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, I'm not one of those people who throws all nuance out the window and says, like, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act is bad, because it's actually not. It's a decent piece of legislation. But when you pass, what was it, like $785 billion? Like, that bill, when you were talking about $3.5 trillion, Manchin did exactly the thing that Republicans are saying he didn't do. So just to give you specifics on this, so this is, I covered this at the time, right? This is the original Build Back Better bill. So here's what was in it. Child tax benefit, universal pre-K, paid family leave, paid medical leave, tuition-free community college, lower prescription drug costs, dental, hearing, and vision in a Medicare expansion, so they even lowered the age for Medicare, housing money, home care money, major climate money, immigration, lower Medicare age, Obamacare expansion, increasing physical supply. I don't know what that one means. Still don't. All these months later. Too many climate and clean energy plans to summarize here. And then it beefed up the IRS. They taxed the rich. They taxed corporations. They did fees on polluters and Medicare negotiations. So this was the original bill. This bill was the biggest, would have been the biggest transformation of the American economy since FDR and the New Deal. What did we actually end up getting? Well, let's go through one by one. Did we get the extended child tax benefit? No, we didn't. Even though this is one of those things that theoretically has bipartisan support, we did not get the extended child tax benefit. Did we get universal pre-K? No, we didn't. Did we get paid family leave or paid medical leave? No, we didn't. Did we get tuition-free community college? No, we didn't. In fact, all we got was Biden did student loan reduction on his own, which he has the legal authority to do, by the way, but to do a free college program, they were trying to put that in Build Back Better, and this didn't make it. Did we get lower prescription drug costs? Well, we got some prescription drug prices lowered, but it's only some, and it kicks in like a few years or something like that. So this is like a half measure. Did we get dental, hearing, and vision in Medicare? We did not. Did we get housing money? We did not. Home care? We did not. Did we get climate money? Yes, we did get climate money in the bill. Yes. In the IRA, of course, I'm talking about. Did we get immigration reform? Not to my knowledge. Did we get a lower Medicare age? We did not. Did we get an Obamacare expansion? We did get Obamacare expansion, $64 billion worth for an Obamacare expansion. And then the only other things we got, so we did get a beefed up IRS. Now, the right is trying to spin that as like, oh, they're going to go after, middle class people and mom and pop businesses. And that 100% is not true. Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, came out and said people who make less than $400,000 a year will not see any increase in IRS audits. So the increase in the IRS funding is just to bring it back to levels that it was, pre-Trump, so that you can actually go after wealthy people again. Because with the IRS being stripped, they didn't have the resources anymore to go after the wealthy, so they were going after the middle class. So it's to refund them so they can go after the wealthy. Taxing the rich. Well, we got a 15% corporate tax rate in there. And I believe there was one other Wall Street tax that was in there, which is a good tax. But I forget the specifics of that one. And yeah, I mean, that's the gist of it, right? Like, we got a bill that is maybe 30% of what it should have been. So Manchin did block a lot of the Democratic agenda, and that's why Democrats hate him, correctly so. But Republicans are so insane, the elected Republicans are so insane, they're mad that he didn't block literally any and all legislation. So let's see what they say here in Raw Story. They say, earlier in the term, when Senator Joe Manchin was the principal vote against advancing a broad-based health care and climate package in the Senate, he was a favorite Democratic senator of the Republican caucus. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell reportedly counseled Republicans to praise him and at various points even said he'd welcome Manchin into the GOP if he chose to switch sides. Then Manchin helped President Joe Biden pass his signature Inflation Reduction Act, securing hundreds of billions of dollars for the president's top priorities, and things changed. According to CNN, Republicans are already making plans on how to take him out when he stands for re-election in 2024. Already a tough proposition, as he represents the most Republican-favoring state of any Democratic senator. Quote, West Virginia GOP Governor Jim Justice acknowledged in a local newspaper interview that he is considering a bid against Manchin. By the way, that would actually be a problem for Manchin. Jim Justice can beat Manchin. There is a potential there. I don't really know what I'm going to do right yet, Justice said. Maybe you'll see me, sticking around and running for national office, but right now, I don't know. Asked directly about the 2024 Senate race, Justice said, I guess it's possible. Who knows? Justice isn't the only Republican already circling Manchin. Last month, West Virginia Republican Representative Alex Mooney ran an ad blasting Manchin for supporting the Inflation Reduction Act, said the report. Suddenly, Joe Manchin is backing Joe Biden's liberal agenda, the ad's narrator said. Manchin is supporting legislation that would raise our taxes, that's total bullshit, tax our coal industry, and devastate West Virginia communities. Asked over the summer whether he was considering a challenge to Manchin, Mooney told CNN that it was an after-November decision, which, you will rightly note, is not a no. This all comes as Republicans work to sink Manchin's legislative priorities. GOP senators have increasingly come out against Manchin's permitting reform bill. So, look, this is interesting because it was actually Bernie and the left that killed this permitting reform. So this is, more pro-fossil fuel garbage, and Manchin's, of course, paid by the special interests and by that industry. And it was Bernie and the left that stood strong and said, we're not going to give you the votes that you need on this. So it was the left that killed it, but the Republicans, just out of spite, came out against it. Even though this is something that's, part and parcel of their own ideology, being pro-fossil fuels. They continue, an intended complement to the Inflation Reduction Act that would make building both renewable and fossil fuel energy projects easier, and introducing a competing bill of their own. So David Sirota did an analysis of this, and it turns out this permitting reform would be terrible for the environment, and it would undo a lot of the good that's done in the Inflation Reduction Act. Former President Donald Trump, writing on his Truth social media platform, had his own assessment about the situation. Quote, when people asked, what happened to Joe Manchin? Why did he go off the rails? The answer is very simple. Mitch McConnell forced his hand by saying that Manchin was weak and ineffective, and that he, McConnell, had him totally under control. Manchin couldn't stand for that, and turned strongly, not against the Republicans, but against McConnell, who he has always despised. The fact is, Joe Manchin should have been brought into the Republican Party long ago. Okay, so that last part, he may have a point on that last part. Joe Manchin is probably more a Republican than a Democrat, but look, here are the facts about Manchin. 538 tracks how often you vote with Trump in the era of Trump. Overall, he voted about 50% of the time with Trump. There was one legislative session where he voted 60% of the time with Trump. So he's like, a Republican centrist, effectively, or a very right-wing Democrat. That's what he is. But the fact of the matter remains, as I just walked through with you here, Joe Manchin got the exact bill that Joe Manchin wanted. He didn't want no $3.5 trillion. He didn't want no change of the economy that's the greatest since the New Deal. He wanted some little tweaks around the edges, some little provisions here and there, and he got it. Now, again, the Inflation Reduction Act is much better than nothing, because on the 15% corporate tax rate alone, I think it's that's a positive bill. But he got what he wanted. And so it's kind of funny to me that the Republicans are too stupid to understand that he is and was their biggest asset. I mean, he is the guy who destroyed and tanked what would have been an era-defining piece of legislation for the Democrats, where effectively it is a clean break with the neoliberal consensus of the past few decades, where we finally start to understand the wisdom of New Deal-era politics, and that government can be a force for good. Instead, we got, a half-decent bill, which is like 30% of what it should be. And so, also understand exactly why Manchin did what he did. Companies' executives donated nearly $300,000 to Manchin's campaign after he rejected Biden's Build Back Better. He also took a tremendous amount of money from Republican billionaire donors. So, it's hilarious to me that Republicans, these elected Republicans, these leaders, really don't understand that This dude is a little more with them than he is with the Democrats. And honestly, he's the reason why Republicans even have a shot coming up in the midterms. Because if Build Back Better passed, Biden and the Democrats would have cruised to re-election. The midterms would have been totally lopsided in favor of Democrats if Build Back Better passed. So they should really be sending this guy flowers and praising him and saying thank you, but they're not doing it. They're attacking him. Why? Because he didn't give them 100% of what they wanted. He only beat back Biden's agenda by like 70%, and they wanted 100%. So, I mean, these are total maniacs. I got zero love for Joe Manchin, but it's hilarious how the right does not have in perspective who and what he is. The true beef with Joe Manchin that is reasonable, of course, is the left. Because we're like, holy shit, you killed 70% of an agenda that was, absolutely necessary. So there you have it. The GOP is now gunning for Joe Manchin, and we'll see what happens. Honestly, I think if it's Jim Justice who runs against him, Jim Justice will definitely have a chance. But if it's anybody else, I don't really think they have a chance. I'd love to see a primary from Manchin's left. Those haven't gone well in the past. Doesn't mean they could never go well, but it'd be nice to have a truly populist Democrat from West Virginia in power. So in other words, economically leftist and like socially agnostic. You're never going to win an election in West Virginia if you're all in on like anti-gun stuff and pro-choice stuff. I mean, I wish you could win running like that, but you can't. So you need somebody who's like socially centrist or socially conservative, but economically leftist. That person theoretically can win and beat Joe Manchin. But, we haven't seen an effective challenge to Joe Manchin from his left. It would be nice to see it, but it seems like what's more likely at this point in time is the right is going to go after him, and honestly, they have a decent chance of sniping him out, although it's not a guarantee.